Nothing controversial.
Okay.
Just highlighting you're here and just sort of trying to get some good content.
I'm rolling, so when you're ready.
So Raphael, delighted you could join us here
Hey guys,
today.
we're rolling, yeah?
Delighted you could join us here at IATA this morning and being on stage this afternoon. Now, what's IATA's viewpoint on the African market and what are they doing to try and improve things for airlines in the continent?
Well, our view is that the market in Africa is growing, and our forecast is that over the next 20 years, Africa is going to be the fastest growing air transport market compared to all the other world regions. Now, this growth needs to be supported, and we think governments need to put right regulations in place. The cost of operations and doing airline business in the region needs to come down. Safety has improved, but needs to continue to improve. And we are trying to assist the governments and the aviation sector to be able to sustain the achievements that they've made in safety thus far. And we also think that the stakeholders, particularly the airlines, need to work together. Otherwise, they might not be able to take advantage of these growing opportunities.
And the major problem with the African market is profitability. It's the only part of the world that IATA predicts will make losses, continued losses for the year ahead. Now, how can we face that? How can we improve the situation?
Well, now the markets are opening up. We are seeing under the single African air transport market, 26 countries have so far confirmed they are willing to open up their markets to each other. This will create enormous opportunities for intra-Africa connectivity for airlines. Now, coupled with the fact that the traffic is growing, we anticipate that if airlines were to work together, and if the cost of operation, particularly cost of fuel and passenger handling costs, plus the taxes that governments impose on passengers, were to come down, it will be more affordable for airlines, for passengers to fly. So many more passengers will fly, and this will increase load factors and ultimately can result in profitability for airlines. The other element which we are advising African governments about is trying to match demand with capacity. In many of the city pairs, the type of equipment that is being used by airlines is too big or too small, but often it's too big for the routes. And because of that, Africa also records the lowest load factors of all the world regions at about 67%, while the global average is around 82%. This needs to change. If we keep flying empty aircrafts around, we will never be able to make money.
And what would you say is the biggest obstacle you're facing to turning Africa into, or delivering on the potential that Africa has?
The biggest challenge up until the last 2 years was safety. And with safety comes the perception about safety. So once the perception is that you're not safe, nobody wants to fly you. This seems to be changing positively, and we're very glad about that. We would want that to be sustained. But on the operational front, we think market access, which is still limited to a greater extent, is a major limiting factor for the ability of airlines to be able to grow their businesses. Now, capital and cost of capital is also a major hindrance for many of the African airlines. And this partly was linked to the fact that many of these countries and their airlines were considered unsafe. And so for purposes of insurance, they were going to pay a higher premium. Similarly, for purposes of getting credit facilities, because many of these countries have not signed the Cape Town Convention and protocols, it became very difficult for them to acquire, to access cheap financing for their aircraft acquisitions. And because of that, they pay a much more higher price for that. The other element is the size of the airlines in Africa. You know, and I keep saying that in the aviation business, small is not beautiful. The smaller you are, the more expensive you get everything for. And so many of the airlines in Africa, particularly very small, operating aircraft of between 3 and 10 aircraft, Now, it's difficult to get economies of scale. Whether it's fuel procurement, spare parts, maintenance, you never are at a competitive advantage. And these are some of the elements.
And what do events like IATA bring to discuss these? You know, what's the value of forums like this, and you know, how do you see IATA developing in the future to be part of a new united Africa?
I think forums like IATA bring stakeholders from across the aviation divide together to look at the current developments of the industry and also see how the future can be improved for the better of the industry. And it is such forums which brings both suppliers, operators together that can help with creating the dialogue that the region needs, so that we can be able to develop together. We can be able to, instead of thinking in silos, each one doing their own thing in their own corner, we can now look at how our businesses interrelate and come up with business models that can help all of us move along in a profitable manner.
Now, if I was to grant you one wish on the African market, what would that wish be from the IATA perspective?
Well, IATA wish that we have an open market in Africa. If we can have an open market in Africa for African operators, it will create enormous opportunities, not only for the airlines, but it will create opportunities, economic opportunities for states, because GDP will grow. It will create job opportunities for states. It will bring about efficiency in business, and it will attract more foreign direct investments.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Raphael.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Not long